Today we will talk about a high-scoring movie about cowboys in the West. This film was the Best Picture at the 80th Academy Awards, and it was also the opening work of the Coen Brothers, which gained great fame. Such a dazzling halo goes beyond that, and the following plot and acting skills will definitely make you even more stunning. The story takes place in 1980 in a border town in Texas, which is widely populated and has a strong wind. It is said that even a slight mistake could lead to a fierce gunfight. The male lead, Llewelyn, is a retired Vietnam War soldier who, despite being far from the war, maintains his consistent rigorous style. The man cursed and slowly got up, then habitually picked up the eggshell. From this traceless action, it can be seen that Llewelyn is a meticulous person, following the route taken by the antelope just now, guessing that the frightened prey will not run too far. At this moment, a pool of bright red blood appeared, and Llewelyn immediately realized that there were other animals and keenly examined the situation around him. In the vast Gobi Desert, there was indeed a hunting dog. Thinking that only he was usually hunting here, Llewelyn walked in the opposite direction of the hunting dog. Crossing over the rocks, a tragic scene appeared in a flat area, with several cars parked in the desolate gravel and several corpses lying next to them. Then, cautiously, Llewelyn walked into the scene with a gun in hand. It is not difficult to judge from the weapons of the two opposing sides that this should be a battle between two gangs. Upon hearing the sound, he opened a car door and saw a dying Mexican gasping for breath. He was shot in the abdomen, his lips cracked, and he was trembling, wanting a sip of water to drink. Upon seeing this, Llewelyn did not show any emotion towards Ruth. He knew that this person could no longer live, so he decisively turned around and left. Llewelyn discovered a large amount of drugs behind the car again, and it was obvious that there must have been two gangs engaged in exclusive trading at the scene, and then there was a gunfight at the scene. As is well known, there must be cash when there is stock, but Llewelyn has been searching for a long time and has not seen a single banknote. The hunter's intuition told him that someone had escaped and must have taken the money. Upon realizing this, I searched nearby and indeed saw a figure under the shade of a tree. Out of caution, Llewelyn did not step forward rashly, but stared silently for 2 hours. Until it was confirmed that the other party had not moved, Llewelyn dared to slowly approach and observe. The man under the shade of the tree was already dead, and there was still a large box on his left side. He deftly took the other person's gun for himself and then looked up the box next to him. It was filled with a 100 yuan bill, which looked like a total of $2 million. Even if we put this money now, it is naturally a staggering sum of money. That night, Llewelyn took advantage of the darkness and quietly returned home. Although he was a retired soldier with outstanding military achievements, the house he lived in was rented with basic facilities. It can be imagined that this money was very necessary, so Llewelyn will not easily let go of it in the future. Late at night, Llewelyn tossed and turned in bed, suddenly thinking of Mexicans during the day in his mind. Perhaps due to a conscience of unease, he decided to send water to the dying person.
What are you going to
do? Something dumber
now, but I'm going anywhere. Arriving at the scene of the daytime fire, Llewelyn parked his car nearby. When he walked into the person to be rescued, he didn't expect that the other person had already been hit in the head by someone else. It was obvious that someone had come after him, and he instinctively turned around to observe the situation. A sudden pickup truck was rushing towards him, and in a hurry, he ran away. However, the speed of his legs was obviously not as fast as that of the car, because he was already at a loss, and Llewelyn had to jump into the small river. The other party saw that they couldn't continue chasing, so they decisively released a hunting dog. Following the turbulent river, Llewelyn quickly disappeared from the enemy's sight. At this moment, the hunting dog following closely behind is very persistent, seeming to never stop until it catches the target. After landing, Llewelyn quickly took out his gun to control the water, and then quickly reloaded the bullets. As the hunting dog rushed towards him in the next second, Llewelyn also happened to complete the shooting action. Returning home, Llewelyn truthfully told his wife about the situation and admitted that he had left his car at the scene. At present, drug traffickers will definitely follow the vine to find the address, so the wife must first go back to her mother's house to hide, while she has to stay to deal with the drug traffickers. After the situation stabilizes for a period of time, they can safely escape the danger. The next day, Llewelyn took his wife on the bus back to his mother's house, and then prepared to go to a nearby hotel. He wanted to stay behind to distract the drug traffickers chasing him, in order to ensure the safety of himself and his wife. At the same time, a strange assassin appeared in the small town, but he was caught by the police after failing to make a good start. The assassin's weapon was an oxygen cylinder, which puzzled the young man who was investigating the case. He then went to the nearest police station, but when the police reported the case, the assassin quietly touched behind him. No matter how the police struggle, everything is in vain. The assassin had a grim expression on his face and exerted all his strength, clearly indicating that he had already made a desperate move. As the scratches on the ground increased, the police gradually lost their breath. This assassin's name is Anton. He may not be considered a big shot in the industry, but he is the most ruthless character in terms of tactics. After escaping from the police station, he stopped a car and replaced the passerby Anton wanted to kill with a Ford. The innocent tree looked confused, unaware that his life had reached its end. Anton's commonly used weapon is an oxygen cylinder, which not only perfectly conceals danger but also kills invisibly. Usually ordinary people find it difficult to detect, and furthermore, Anton gives the impression of being very polite. What is that for you to hold still, please? After randomly capturing a car, Anton arrived at a nearby gas station. When paying the bill, the boss casually greeted me, but Anton was very angry after hearing this. He questioned the boss, "Why did you ask me? Do I know you well?" This statement made the boss realize that the problem was that the man in front of him was either mentally abnormal or deliberately picking on trouble. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, the old party changed the topic and said, "We need to leave work." Anton continued to ask, "Why do you have to leave work? Is it because I didn't like it that I had to close?" Faced with Anton's thorough inquiry, the awkward boss remained speechless once again. Although this man looked ordinary, his irresistible murderous aura was suffocating. At this point, Anton took out a coin and asked the other party to guess the front and back sides. The strange behavior frightened the boss. Little did he know that he had already fallen into a big gamble, and the bet was his own life. I can tell that the man's tone is not a command, but it feels like he can't guess. Seeing that there is no room for negotiation, the boss tentatively chose to be positive. Fortunately, the boss won his life, and Anton had to turn around and leave in disappointment. At the same time, Lao Luo found a hotel to settle down, and now he needs to consider how to escape and perfectly take the money away. After looking at the ventilation grass above my head, I decisively stuffed the money box in. After finishing all of this, Lao Luo sprayed disinfectant on his injured foot and then went to the mall to buy a new pair of shoes. When he returned to the hotel again, it was already evening. Lao Luo noticed suspicious vehicles in the yard and immediately thought that the drug dealer might have found the door. Out of caution, he instructed the driver to continue driving without stopping. Immediately after seeing the curtains of the room being pulled up, without hesitation, Lao Luo instructed the driver to immediately leave the area, and he wanted to come back tomorrow day to take a look. Late at night, Anton appeared at the fire scene. Originally, he came to the town to be employed by a drug trafficking group with the aim of finding the missing 2 million. First, I took off Lao Luo's car identification plate, and then I saw the tracking device about the money box. Now I can find who it is based on the identification plate, and then I can complete the task based on the tracking device. During the conversation, Anton suddenly pulled out his gun and killed the assistant sent by the drug dealer with lightning speed. In his opinion, being able to handle others on his own is unnecessary. The next day, Anton, who had found the address, arrived at Lao Luo's house. He politely knocked on the door, but when no one responded, he broke in directly. The room was quiet with no one in sight, but there were several letters in front of the door, one of which was a reminder bill for phone bills, which also left a hidden danger for the future. Anton didn't seem flustered at all. He opened the refrigerator, took out a bottle of milk, and then sat down to think about Lao Luo's ideas. After a moment, Anton came to the rental center and asked about Lao Luo's whereabouts, but the chubby woman on duty claimed that she had no comment. Me.
Does it work?
Did you not hear me? We can't give out no information.
In this way, under normal circumstances, Anton would inevitably kill a woman, but she is a principled assassin. Perhaps it was because the chubby woman persisted in her beliefs that she narrowly escaped the danger of murder. At the same time, the sheriff of the small town began to pursue Anton because he not only killed the police, but also killed passers-by and robbed a Ford. Immediately after, the sheriff received intelligence and rushed to the scene of the fire. He recognized Lao Luo's car at a glance and saw the new body from last night at the scene. So the only clue at the moment is Lao Luo. Without delay, upon arriving at Lao Luo's house, the sheriff realized that the door lock had been tampered with and cautiously walked into the room, which was naturally empty. At this moment, the sheriff guessed that the assassin had come and couldn't help but feel a hint of panic in his heart. The closer we get to the target now, the more we can feel the terrifying aura of death. The sheriff knows he's not a match for demons at all. At the same time, Lao Luo purchased a rifle and several tent poles. The guns were used for self-defense, but what was the tent pole used for? After getting ready, he returned to the hotel and asked Gue Yuan to take out the floor plan. Because he had booked room 138 yesterday, he now needs to book the opposite room 38. Although it seems that there are two unrelated positions, their ventilation ducts are actually connected. It is not difficult to see from here that Lao Luo is an extremely meticulous person, with every step taken unexpectedly and also under control. Using the purchased tent poles to make hooks, Lao Luo wants to use them to pull the money box back. At this very moment, Anton, who was wandering around the town, discovered a clue. Based on the frequency of the tracker, the target must be hidden in the hotel in front of us. Cunning Anton remained silent. He first observed the surroundings and quickly confirmed that the box was in room 138. He immediately went to the front desk to take a look at the floor plan, and then decisively decided on his latest opinion. His purpose was not to rest here, but to simulate how to kill accurately, starting from breaking through the door and practicing, guessing what kind of danger might arise. After familiarizing oneself with the layout of the room, measure the thickness of the wall panels and calculate whether bullets can penetrate. Such a cautious assassin, no wonder it makes the sheriff feel intimidated. Subsequently, Anton took off his shoes and began to take action, holding an oxygen cylinder in one hand and gripping the gun head in the other. Suddenly, he collided with the enemy ambushed in room 138 and was instantly beaten to pieces. They were supposed to wait for Lao Luo to come, but to their surprise, they received the Grim Reaper. After defeating the last enemy, Anton couldn't help feeling unhappy with his employer. At present, at least 2 teams are looking for Qian Xiang, which also indicates that the boss did not have the principle to carefully search the room, but did not obtain any useful clues. Slowly looking up, Anton noticed traces of the ventilation opening. Using a coin to open the baffle, there are indeed obvious scratches on it. Originally, the praying mantis was catching cicadas, and the yellow sparrow was behind. Anton also realized that the target was not an ordinary tricky one. Later on, the drug trafficking group believed that the hired Anton had lost control, so they invited the top assassin in the industry, Carl. His abilities were well known and outstanding, but when he heard that he had to deal with Anton who appeared, Carl's expression instantly became a ripple. More and more people are joining missions now, but who can get the money box? That evening, Lao Luo, who had fled all the way, checked into a new hotel. For safety reasons, he gave the front desk some extra dollars and said that if anyone checked in again, he would be notified as soon as possible. At this moment, Lao Luo was physically and mentally exhausted. He originally wanted to rest well, but after thinking about it, he always felt something was wrong. Why did he consider everything, but his whereabouts were still discovered? Subconsciously opening the money box to check, there was a stack that turned out to be $1, and there was also a tracker inside. At the same time as Lao Luo suddenly understood, there was also noise coming from downstairs. The busy tone of quickly calling the front desk to respond explained everything. The assassin who arrived was right outside the door, so Lao Luo decisively picked up a gun and turned off the lights. The bright light in the hallway immediately reflected the figure. The enemy outside seemed very cunning. He suddenly turned off all the lights, and then only a terrible silence remained. Old Luo, who jumped out of the window in a hurry, was shot. He saw that the assassin behind him did not come after him, so he immediately stopped a passing car and ran away. However, the unlucky passers-by had not yet sorted out their thoughts, and the next second they were blown out of their heads by the assassin. In a moment of desperation, Lao Luo had no choice but to grit his teeth and start the car. Perhaps due to injuries on Lao Luo's body, the car collided with the roadside before walking too far. Upon arriving, Anton approached to check and thought that the target had died, but it was only after seeing the bloodstains that he realized he had been ambushed. Lao Luo fired continuously and chased after the victory, but still allowed Anton to escape the scene. Although he did not clear the obstacles, he speculated that the other party must have been seriously injured and did not entangle too much. Lao Luo carried a money box to the border between the United States and Mexico. Due to being shot in the abdomen and bleeding too much, if left untreated, his life may be in danger. Due to helplessness, Lao Luo had to find a place and then threw the money box into the nearby grass. At this moment, several young people walked across the street, so Lao Luo took out money to buy their jackets and also brought a bottle of beer to wrap the wound tightly. Then, under the dim light, Lao Luo pretended to be an alcoholic and infiltrated Mexico. I don't know how long it took, but in a daze, Lao Luo saw a passing band and without hesitation, took out his money to seek help, which finally allowed him to survive. The next day, Lao Luo woke up in the hospital and saw a strange face. It turned out that the famous Carl had found him. From this detail, it is not difficult to infer that Carl's mobility is no less than Anton's. This man already knows everything about Lao Luo, including his wife's hiding place. Carl admitted that as long as you obediently hand over the money box, I can guarantee your safety. Lao Luo falsely claimed to have spent all his money and said not to harass him again. Carl told Lao Luo that since I can find your wife, Anton can also do the same. If you want to protect yourself and your family, why don't you call me and let me know? I'm in the hotel across from you. Leaving the hospital, Carl followed the trail of Lao Luo and speculated that the injured target would definitely hide in his hometown. After several recognitions, a clue was indeed found in the grass at the border. At this time, Carl did not take immediate action. He thought of coming over to retrieve it at night. At the same time, Anton suffered a serious thigh injury, but he dared not go to the hospital for treatment. Thinking that the pharmacy had something he needed, he quietly unscrewed the fuel tank of a car, lit a cloth covered in gasoline, and walked slowly into the pharmacy. At this moment, the car suddenly exploded, and everyone's gaze was drawn to the outside. Taking advantage of the chaos at the scene, Anton quickly took some emergency medicine. Returning to his residence, Anton spread a plastic cloth to prevent bloodstains from contaminating the ground during treatment. He then cleaned and disinfected the wound, and finally applied himself with anti-inflammatory drugs. A few hours later, Carl, who returned to the hotel, noticed something behind him. When he turned around, it turned out to be Anton. He guessed that he had exposed his identity during his actions, but at this point, he could only face it. So, the two Ashes-level assassins began a conversation, and Carl was very clear about Anton's style. He immediately requested not to kill himself and explained that he had discovered the location of the money box. Anton said he doesn't care about Chen Xiang, what he cares about is that the boss hired another assassin. Upon hearing this, Carl already understood that the man in front of him would never let himself go. You go to L. At this moment, the phone in the room suddenly rang, and Carl's life came to an end. The phone was from Lao Luo. He has figured it out and wants to compromise with Carl. Upon hearing that the person answering was Anton, Lao Luo instantly became nervous. The two of them had been circling for so long, and this was the first time they had a conversation across the air. Anton told Lao Luo that if you bring the money box, I can let go of your family, but you must die yourself. Otherwise, no one can live tomorrow. As soon as he said this, Lao Luo was extremely angry. He immediately changed his mind and vowed to fight Anton to the end. Stepping out of the hospital, Lao Luo wore a hospital gown and wanted to return to the United States. There is an unwritten rule here, which is relaxed for leaving the United States, but very strict for entering the United States. Fortunately, Lao Luo was able to pass through with the help of retired soldiers. He first went to the store to buy a set of clothes, and then retrieved the money box in the grass. In order to ensure his wife's safety, Lao Luo called and asked her to meet at the designated hotel. As long as his wife got the money box and ran away, he could stay and focus on dealing with the assassin. On the other side, Anton is not in a hurry to find Lao Luo. His primary task is to kill the employer. Arriving at the stronghold of the drug trafficking group, Anton remained silent and fired directly. The once glorious leader had not yet reacted and was instantly blasted to ashes. Looking at the boss convulsing on the ground, Anton's face showed no ripples at all. He hates people without principles. Since he found himself, why send others? The accountant on the side was already scared and foolish. He trembled and begged not to kill himself. Anton asked him what he had just seen, and the accountant immediately said nothing. For such a person without principles, his fate can naturally be imagined. Later, on his way to find Lao Luo, Anton's car broke down. However, a kind-hearted chicken farmer stopped and was willing to help. Anton, who always loves cleanliness, was very polite. Naturally, he killed the other person and then robbed his car. At the same time, Lao Luo's wife was worried about her husband's safety, so she quietly told the police chief about his whereabouts. The sheriff was willing to provide assistance upon hearing this, but little did he know that this action had no effect. Subsequently, the wife went to find her husband as scheduled according to the agreement. However, halfway through, she was targeted by other gangs. Unfortunately, the broken-mouthed mother-in-law was also set out of her destination by someone. When the sheriff arrived at the place agreed upon by Lao Luo first, a group of earlier assassins had already taken action. They couldn't find the money box, but unfortunately, Lao Luo died in the hotel. That night, his wife arrived at the crime scene, but he could only look at his husband's body and cry. The investigating police officer told the sheriff that they had not found the so-called $1 million cash, and even Lao Luo only had a few hundred yuan on him. The sheriff was puzzled by the result and speculated that someone had taken the money box. Late at night, the sheriff returned to the hotel where Lao Luo had an accident. His intuition told him that the money box might still be inside. When he saw that the door lock was empty, he instinctively guessed that the killer was nearby. In fact, Anton was hiding behind the door, ready to take action, knowing that he couldn't beat the assassin. The sheriff hesitated for a long time in front of the door. Perhaps because of his profession, he still chose to enter. It was empty inside, with nothing, and the window in the restroom was opened, indicating that the assassin had slipped through the back door. The sheriff breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this situation. He felt fortunate that Wei had not encountered the killer, and he felt guilty that Wei had not caught the killer. Looking up, he saw the ventilation opening in the room, and there was a coin left next to the baffle. It is not difficult to infer that Lao Luo must have put the money box back into the ventilation opening. But this time, Anton saw through his tricks. In a blink of an eye, a few months later, Lao Luo's mother-in-law fell ill and passed away, while his heartbroken wife lost all her relatives. The film may come to a dull end at this point, but in reality, it has only just begun. The wife who returned home found an unexpected guest. It turned out that Anton had found this place. In fact, his wife was already prepared in her heart. He didn't think things would pass so easily. The woman told Anton that the money box was not here at all, and she didn't have any extra money on her. Anton's purpose is not for money, but to fulfill his previous silence, because he once told Lao Luo that if he dared to go against his will, no one could live tomorrow. The wife who heard this suddenly felt a little sad. He was usually kind enough to avoid ants, but now he has landed in such a field. Anton said, "Your kindness does not conflict with my principles, but out of the same kindness, he is willing to let women win their lives by guessing coins, and this is also Anton's last kindness." The wife strongly refused upon seeing the situation, as whether to kill or not was ultimately decided by the killer. Now Anton doesn't know what to do, so he can only urge him over and over again. A few minutes later, Anton opened the door and looked at his shoes. This action all indicates the result. A man with a cleanliness fetish must have killed a woman. When driving away from the town, he claimed to be Anton, who followed the rules and followed the traffic. Unexpectedly, he was hit by an unnamed person who ran a red light and suffered a terrible car accident. Anton was covered in blood, stumbling, and his arm was smashed into a bone fracture. 2 little boys ran over to help, and Anton took out money to buy his coat. This was to hang his arm, and he also told the boy to pretend nothing had happened. Before the police arrived at the scene, Anton limped away from the town. At this point, the film ends. The film was translated as No Country for Old Men, but after watching it, I couldn't find a clue. Looking back carefully at the plot from beginning to end, it turns out that there is no real protagonist, no handsome men or beautiful women, no fruits of cultivation after experiencing hardships, and no proper punishment for bad people. What's particularly outrageous is that this film doesn't even have any background music. To be honest, the viewing experience is like flipping a coin, and no one can accurately describe it. In fact, this film is about a sense of powerlessness, and no one can escape the crushing wheel of fate.